Welcome back to the Wanks FPL podcast. We are here to talk Gameweek 19 and to help talk through some of the dilemmas we have going into Gameweek 20. Happy New Year to all of our listeners. And let's hope for some that 2026 is the year of the green arrow. How are we feeling, boys?
Hey, so far we turned it around and we got a green going into this year. So 2026 is looking up. We're excited for it.
Nice. Mac, how we doing?
Similar. Went in with some regrets on the bench, but a green overall, which I feel like was my year. So I'm looking forward to 2026. Do we have any bold predictions ahead of 2026? Is there like any odd curveballs that you guys want to throw out there?
Ooh.
I was trying to think about that earlier to spring this on you.
Who do you guys actually think is going to win the league? Because I could really see it being City.
I just don't think Arsenal's going to give enough away.
Yeah, I kind of think it's going to be Arsenal this year too, unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say that.
I was going to say it's a boring pick, but I just feel like their defense is too stout. Even they got through all this injury nonsense, and I feel like they're going to come back stronger and not give much away.
Mm-hmm. City did just draw to Sunderland. That's a tough.
But
tough, Sunderland, dude. Holy fuck! Like
Sunderland's nice with it, man.
Yeah, dude, crazy stuff.
This time next year, Sunderland is going to be playing for a Champions League spot in the Prem. Maybe that's my.
Maybe my bold take is this time next year, Sunderland's on pace for relegation.
The relegation watch.
Oh no, that's terrible.
Well, I don't want that to happen. Big fan of the Black Cats. It seems like they're overperforming a lot, and it's always a question for these Prem teams: can they stay? And I really hope they do because we need it. But
yeah, the top three, City, Arsenal, and Villa, all three have won 4 of their last 5. Yeah, it's tight. 6-point gap between Arsenal and Villa, 4-point gap between City and Arsenal.
Okay, the funny part is, do any of us think Villa is really a possible
No,
right?
No. It is impressive though, and it's crazy how quietly they've gotten into that position. But it's also worth noting just how close the entire midfield is. Like they're only 6 points ahead of Liverpool, and Liverpool have had a disastrous season. So,
well, if you drop to Chelsea in 5th. Brentford in 9th are 3 points back on them. That's one game.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, that is Premier League. We're just here to talk fantasy, baby. So let's jump into our Game Week 19 review here. Anybody want to go first?
Yeah, we can start at the top.
All right. Is that you? I don't actually know.
I think it was.
All right.
Shane, did you get me?
What's up?
Did you get me? I was on pace to beat you. I didn't actually look at the results. Nice job.
Thank you.
47, 45, yeah.
Bummer.
He edged you out.
To be fair, Mac, I think ours is going to be a pretty similar recap here. What kills me is the 15 points on the bench. So I did get, obviously, outperformed the average, but also got a green arrow, so moved back up from a few weeks in a row of reds to 159K. So at least excited about that, but that is 15 points on the bench, 9 that I at least should have played and did not, which was unfortunate. So Ruben continues to be, I'm pretty happy with bringing him in as the City defender, especially with O'Reilly getting subbed off at 57 this week when those guys were kind of back and forth. So he's consistently been just slightly better than most of them, either getting a bonus point or DEFCONs or whatever it may be over the past few weeks. So I've been pretty happy there. Tark continues to be a great pick, solid play every week guy. I think everyone was disappointed with United this week. I mean, drawing to Wolves, giving them their 3rd point of the entire season was a tough look for Man U. So Dallo kind of blew. Would have loved to have Timber in instead of him. Luke, you did point out last week that I may as well keep Timber in my lineup, but if he doesn't play, he doesn't play. I wish I would have listened to you for the first time this season. That would have been great. So
I'll accept written apologies. That would be fun.
That's as good as you're getting right there. So
I was on the other side of that. You hand up. I got it wrong as well. Got punished.
Hey, let's wind the clocks back because it wasn't just I don't think so. It was you're fucking idiot. No, I'm not doing that. So yeah, that one felt sweet, but it came at a cost.
I was gonna say there's a reason you're in the banana though. So there's a reason we don't listen to you. Bruno G and Newcastle. Hopefully he continues this. They have a nice streak of games coming up. So I know we've been kicking around like how much faith do we have in him? Obviously rewarded us a little bit this week. So happy for that. And then the captaincy picks. We're kind of kicking this around too, but everyone blanked. So I went different with Ekitike. Didn't get hurt, didn't get rewarded, is what it is.
Yeah. All right, Mac, take us through it.
I mean, Sharp has 2 points different than me, and that's because of 2 players. I think I played Chow, and he had Ruben in, and there was the difference in the 2 points. Then I had Rogers, and you had somebody else in the midfield who got 1 point. So
Wilson.
I was losing it, but right before the deadline because I was terrified of Cunha popping off, and that like fear when the deadline's looming and there's this player who everyone's moving on and you just don't have him, and all of your senses tell you not to go there, and you still want to go there just out of like FOMO. That was me. And then I missed the deadline. I was like trying to see if I could fit him in somehow for some sort of hit, and he blanked. So happy with that. I brought in Rogers 2 weeks earlier than I needed to, and he hasn't returned in either of those 2 weeks, which was expected. So I'd like to see a little more from him in these upcoming weeks now that the fixtures turn. I just had exact money when I was going for Ekatike, and so I thought that was a good move for a guy who would turn in a couple weeks, but wasn't great to see him blank. And then Newcastle, I think, is really one of the big things I wanted to talk about just with this team, like still not keeping clean sheets. Bruno G did score, but it was in the 93rd minute. So that makes me a little nervous. And, I think Luke last week, you were like, I just cannot keep these Newcastle guys. They are not cleaning. And I was like, but surely they'll clean against Burnley this week. And they just didn't. And I think it's presenting us with an interesting challenge. Should we keep these for the great run of games, or should we just be shipping these assets who aren't doing what we want? So I'm like happy with the game week, clearly above average. Disappointed to have Timber on the bench, but other than that, I need to start looking at my team, figuring out where we're going from here.
And this is where like Grass FC versus Analytics FC fails you, because the frustrating part about it is Newcastle held Burnley to 1 XG, right? And this is kind of the recipe of their season. Like, they're good defensively, genuinely at limiting chances, but they still just let them squeak in. And whether that's a goalie issue, whether that's something else, whether it's unlucky, what have you, they keep doing it very consistently. So it's, neither here nor there. All right, moving on to my team. I'll start up front, actually, because I'll get to the back. Bowen returned, which was hype. That was like one of the things I was really praying for this week. Obviously, he was a little bit of a differential. I'm sure he's getting some more transfers in now, but that was exciting. Holland blank, Ekatike blank. Wilson came in for Rice, obviously blank. Not too surprising there, but thought maybe there was something. Cunha blank, Foden blank, Bruno G with just hanging in there, hanging under my team by dear life. And then Chow with some DEFCON, but obviously no keeping the clean. And then here's where the frustration really happened. So just as a review, last week, my transfers were to bring in Cunha and then transfer Timber out for Dorgu. And the reason I would have kept Timber, I just didn't have 3 starters that I could play with Richards and Rodon being hurt. So had to get somebody who I knew was going to start. So I went for Dorgu. Not only does Timber play, but he gets his first attacking return in who knows how long. Dorgu scores, it gets called back. Timber, Gabriel, obviously, who I didn't go for because I was worried, there was a chance he didn't start. Just wanted somebody who was for sure going to play. He obviously returns huge. And then Timber and Gabriel get subbed before the 90th minute, so they get their clean sheet. I didn't see that. I was out for the second half of the game, so didn't see that they had been subbed off, and saw that Arsenal conceded and was like, oh, thank God. Like, because I had Raya, but I knew that I was getting destroyed by those guys. So I was like, thank God they conceded. Then I look, the only player who doesn't benefit from that is Raya. So I think with the hit that I took to get Timber out, I think he outscored Dorgu by 7. So it's like a minus 11 point transfer. And then we go to the City game where I'm like, well, at least they're going to clean here. And then O'Reilly gets a 57th minute sub, doesn't get to clean there. So yeah, pretty disastrous. I have already made some transfers. I have already taken a hit, and the season is over. I am at 2 million. Neither here nor there.
The sky is falling. Everything's going to hell.
Yeah, just it's over. It's over.
Wow. At this point, you got to embrace it. You got to have fun with it.
Yeah, I don't think it's over. I think you gotta adapt and overcome at this point.
I would just do the opposite of everything you've done so far. Like, beat George Costanza.
Right. I don't even know how to do that. But yeah, last week we talked about Mac. You said don't switch up your stick true to your values and stuff. And boy, does that get harder every week. I don't know. This is a tough one where, like I was saying to Sharp before we came on, there's times this year where I've made a transfer or done something and I've been like, that was stupid. Like I made the wrong play or what have you, or went, like thinking back to like Cunha and Mbumo, obviously I got really crushed for that, but I wish I had gone Mbumo. That just seems like the more logical play, for example. This time around, I'm like, damn, I really didn't like, this was fine. I don't think I did anything that wrong, but boy, did I get fucking killed for it. So it is what it is. That's the game we play.
I mean, I think the problem was, right, the reason you had to go to, or you wanted to go Cunha, so you had to bring Timber down to get the funds for it, if I remember correctly. So it's understandable, and you wouldn't have expected, even with United, to be as decimated as they are by players leaving or injuries or whatnot, to draw Wolves.
Yeah.
2-point Wolves.
And to completely just blank out. Yeah, it was tough.
So yeah, we should like talk about that for a sec, because that United performance was abysmal, and everybody moved on United players last week, and we all got punished for it. And like, I don't know what the vibes are, because they were riding a couple highs. I wasn't confident in them, and that's why I didn't go Cunha. But I at least thought they'd clean against Wolves, and they didn't do that either. So now I'm kind of like, are they just shit still? Like, should we just not be looking at them?
I mean, a couple of weeks back before they ran into this run of fixtures, that was the problem that I had. Is like, this has already been an inconsistent United team, and then you lose a lot of their good players, right? They just genuinely dropped a lot of them. Now, granted, what you said, Sharp, they're playing Wolves, so we think, okay, they should probably still do the thing. But yeah, I mean, they lost a lot of starters. It's not just a lot of players. Like, they lost a lot of their starters. So
and their defense is fairly injured too. Like, Maguire's out. So.
Right. So it's not the craziest thing. I mean, they did get outchanced as well. Yeah, just not a good team. Like, it's really tough. And the Cunha thing is interesting, because I think something that minorly contributed to my thought process was, well, he did it with Wolves, right? Like, he was somebody who was on a pretty shit team, and when he was asked to be the main man, obviously delivered quite a bit. So there was that thought in my mind of like, maybe he can do that. Sure can't. Fuck that guy. So it is what it is.
I think the difference is the United does have talented pieces in places where Wolves, I feel like, really did not have that much.
Right.
And so it was hey, get Cunha the ball, whereas United right now is just lost. Like, they don't have a plan for it. They don't know how to attack it, and everyone kind of wants to be a guy, but shouldn't be a guy, and they kind of have to give that power up. But I think it's stay off United going forward. Of anyone who is over 4.5 million, if you have Dorgo or you have Dallo, like, no reason to move them. You can keep them, but yeah, anything more expensive is tough.
I still will say, if you just brought the United guys in, I don't think you need to like ship them immediately, because we're all bummed that Cunha didn't score against Wolves, but the next two are Leeds and Burnley and then Brighton. So you know, it's kind of like that João Pedro situation back in like game week 6-7, where he was playing Wolves and Burnley and everyone was so pissed at him, and we all shipped him and he still scored then anyways. Like, I think that there's a higher than likely chance that Cunha will return in the next 2 games, and there's no point of bringing him in and then immediately bring him out. So I feel like for a lot of the United Cunha havers, like, I'm sorry, bad week, but I'm not even going to say stay true or hold the faith, because I have none, but it just doesn't seem like a good team move to like immediately transfer him in, transfer him out. You probably have bigger holes.
For sure. And I mean, yeah, there's a good chance that he could return. There's also a good chance they could keep cleans. But this is, you know, arguably it's Wolves and Burnley. Like, what's the best fixture on paper? And this is either one or two. So yeah, that's tough.
I don't know. Oh, I was just going to agree with it, because Leeds is pretty stout defensively. So I wouldn't feel too confident in that game.
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
I don't know if I'd say stout, but sure. They're better than Burnley and Wolves for sure.
No, they're not at all stout, but we just played them to a 0-0 draw yesterday. So, you know, that's how I'm spinning it.
Tough days for Liverpool. Is that 2 draws against Leeds this season?
Yeah, 3-3 and 0-0. Because
Jesus Christ,
that's the team we are.
Yeah. Well, before we get too much into it, just wanted to touch on where we're at from individual in the mini here between the podcast hosts. Sharp still your leader. Mac and I quite a bit behind, but Mac's still in a doable position to maybe make some gains. In terms of rank, I am at my worst rank of the season. Sharp, you're leveling out a little bit, and same with you, Mac. It looks like over the last 10 weeks or so, you guys have been pretty flat, which is a solid spot to be in for where you're at.
I think if you think about the context of how the season's been going, that makes a lot of sense, because we were both plummeting all the way through like 13. which was when teams were still wildly different.
Right.
But
Now
then
we're templated up a little bit.
everybody like 12, 13 started bracing for AFCON, started spending the transfers to really like get the same guys, and then had 5 transfers. So I think that the reason everybody's kind of like leveling off is because there's a lot of templates out there. And a lot of the moves we're debating are these sideways moves between a Cherokee and a Foden, or a Rice and a Rice and a Saka, and they're not like huge template breaking moves. Whereas like your Bowen shout is. So I think that would probably explain some of the performance, and I think the key to dropping rank is just going to be for us to get on that next wave ahead of everybody else.
I just want to know what the hell we were doing. Me between game weeks 4 and 5, and you between 9 or 8, 9 or 9 and 10. Why did we just both take a random spike?
I think that is like my line here is not the typical line. I think your guys' is pretty typical in that sense of you start with, you only have a couple of weeks worth of data, right? So through 3 weeks, you could easily be in the, I think Mac, you were like, what, 6 million or something really high, right?
Like 7 or something crazy game week 1 and 2.
Right. But just because there's so much variability, there are people who have used their triple captains on Zubamendi at that point, and you're behind folks like that. And then as things start to level out, you make more transfers, people delete teams, people like you cut through a lot of people really quickly in that sense. So yeah, I think that's like a relatively normal play.
Yeah. Let's see if we can turn you around. Come down and join us here next game week.
That's the thing, like, not to be all doom and gloom, but I was looking into it, like, even before the City game, I was like, what happens if Haaland scores twice and O'Reilly scores once, Foden scores once, and on both of those Haaland goals, O'Reilly and Foden assist, and they keep the clean, and it would drop me from like 1.8 million to like 1.5. And I was
you picked 3 players that a lot of people have, so maybe just
yeah, I suppose
pick players that some everyone's gonna benefit from.
Yeah, I think like the thing is too is if you look at both Sharp and I's graph, Sharp went from 3 mil to like 6 mil, or like 1 mil in a week. I went from 3.4 mil to sub 500k in like 5 weeks. And at this point in the season, I think a lot of people are like, my season's done, I'm not where I want to be, and they just like check out or stop playing. But that I've been there, and truly, if you just like manage your team every week, I think your rank will fall just by nature of attrition, because it's a long ass season, and like people will forget to switch their captains, and like not sub their bench off. Like, and you can get legs up on active managers in the next sort of 20 weeks just by continuing to play the game. Because I've had bad seasons like this where I've been like 2 million at the turn of the year, and then I finish like sub 200k, because you just it's 40 games, and like a little rise isn't a big deal in the grand scheme of the whole picture.
Right. Yeah, and I'm pulling up something here talking about the template. Live FPL shows you kind of what the let me see if I can bring it up, but shows you what the template team is, the most owned players at the moment. And it does look like, at this point, certainly a template has come to form. And to your guys' point, like, it's just getting in on some of those other picks early. I want to lead this into a conversation that we've been having about whether or not to pull in a wild card within the next couple of weeks. And so the conversation that we've had there has kind of varied over the last few weeks. It's at points, I think that's favorable. At points, I think that's not favorable. And obviously it's a wait and see game, but the reason it's obviously tempting for me for the points that we just made of trying to get ahead of stuff. It's also, I think we're all sitting in here where we have not smartly rolled a lot of our transfers since getting 5. Mm-hmm. And so I'm certainly looking at, like, I was thinking about, okay, if I want to get Ekatike out before Arsenal next week, I have to take another hit. And I'm taking a hit this week. I took a hit last week. Like, I'm really getting into that scenario where potentially resetting in that sense is helpful. But the counterpoint is obviously you definitely want to wait a couple. So my thought process with potentially an early wild card is trying to time it for when AFCON players come back, for when players like Bruno Fernandes come back, and potentially if he continues to be able to play minutes, Palmer as well. So there's obviously some like opportunities to take advantage of, as well as just Chelsea picks in general when their fixtures start to turn. There's some things to potentially take advantage of, but I think also how much do we see this template shifting, right? For example, you have triple Arsenal in this list, and you have your Haalands of the world. You have Ekatike and Thiago. So I think it's interesting. But there are players like Foden, who is a good example of really highly owned, hasn't been returning over the last few. Is that going to be seen as a priority transfer at some point? Or is it just he's in a little bit of a lull and City has nice fixtures long term? Saka, like, are people getting frustrated there? You know, I think there's a lot of potential changes that could come about, but it's curious to know exactly where those are going to be.
Well, I think you look at just off the bat, I'm expecting Semenyo to not be in there anymore once he makes that move in real life to
Right.
City.
Right.
So once he's in there, I think Foden is ridiculously highly owned. I mean, I know he had that stretch there of 11 to 17 points over 4 game weeks, which was awesome. But like you said, he's not returning very well. And you have Cherky out there for 1.7, 1.9 million, something like that cheaper. So to me, that makes sense. I think you're going to see Rice drop if we doesn't play a week or two here. I think that you got to have the funds available right now. So I could see that dropping.
Right.
And Ekitike, yeah, he's the only forward available right now for Liverpool. But if we're going to play a game like we did this week and we're going to look as stagnant and disgusting and put 0 in against Leeds, then why would you have him? Why would you not go Bowen and DCL as your second and third strikers there, or insert other players? I expect Rodgers to keep going up. I think we've talked about Villa has some decent fixtures coming up. Chelsea, obviously, in about 2 weeks, is going to have a really good run. And then you get some kind of random ones. I think the defense is going to change, and I think you're going to see more Sunderland guys in there, Mukiele or Alderete or whoever. Because
I'd be really interested in Royce as well. He's still the highest scoring keeper, and they haven't cracked defensively the way that you would think they might.
Is that the Bournemouth Royce?
No, it's Sunderland's goalie.
Sunderland.
Sorry, I knew that wasn't right. Okay, continue.
But I think that's a great call because I think that Raya can come down and you can start looking with Gabriel back. That becomes your third Arsenal, or you get 3 Arsenal outfield players if you want them, versus a very expensive goalie that is not outscoring a cheaper one.
Yeah.
And then obviously we're going to see Chelsea. Chelsea has that great run. Is it going to be Chalobah? Is it going to be Reece James? Kukurea is back in training. So it's going to be a weird, you got to pick right. So I think, Luke, like, you're in a fun little time where just make a choice. Pick the guy that you think is going to be good. Is it going to be Palmer? Is it going to be Enzo? Is it going to be 2 Chelsea defenders? I don't know. And then the only other person that we talk about every single week, Everton. Everton has a great run here, and Tark is not highly owned. If you don't have Tark, I don't know why you don't have Tark at this point, honestly.
I think it's just because, like, Braithwaite is an alternative. Or not Braithwaite, excuse me, Keane for a similar price. So on this topic, if I may steal the screen share for just a sec. Yeah. Luke and I were talking, and I was under the impression that he was wildcarding, and he was not. Sorry, can you remove your thing from the screen real quickly?
Oh, yeah.
We'll take this moment to give a shout out to our sponsor in the upper corner. Shout out StreamYard.
Shout out StreamYard. And so I whipped up a wildcard draft, right? Like, if you were to wildcard right now, who would you realistically want to get on?
Right. And this is our current teams.
It's our current teams, right? And that's even with a differential of, like, if I restore Tarkowski, I think I had Ruben slotted in. Ruben Diaz. Does that make sense? No. So, okay.
Something like that.
I messed it up.
Something.
Yeah. I had Gueye out and Ruben out and Alderte. There's a Brad. Yes, thank you. The Brad Pitt movie was that?
Inglourious Bastards. But yeah, I think this is a very template team. Like, I hear your point on it. I think, again, the timeline would be probably when the AFCON guys come back. I think that's when you target that trigger.
The point against right now is just that if you are wildcarding right now, unless you somehow don't have, like, I would guess that everybody has some combination of, like, 7 or 8 of these players. And if not, they have related players. Like, it might not be Guehi specifically, but it might be LaCroix. Or you might not have Gabriel, but you might have Timber. Or, like, instead of Tarkowski, might be Keane. So it just feels like a wild card right now is purely sideways moves. And if you want your wild card to be the most effective, you need to use it for, like, a shift in a large amount of fixtures, which is coming, but not here yet. So I don't think that it makes sense right now. And this is what I've just been, like, kind of trying to illustrate is, like, none of these guys are guys that I'm even confident having in my team currently for a long time. So I'm not sure if I had wild card into this team.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think what you're trying to say is there's a big template right now and it's not shifted yet. And I think part of what's made that really tricky, like Sharp, you being like, hey, you can just take a shot on whoever you want. Yes and no. And the reason no is because of price changes. Those have made things so difficult because there's such a template. Players like Rodgers, for example, Mac, that you got on a couple weeks ago. Yeah, he hasn't returned, but he's also risen like 4 times. So it prices you out of players really quickly. who are in that template if you don't go that way immediately. And it also, like a player like Declan Rice is projected to go down tonight. And he's somebody that we can talk about it when we get to transfer plans. I'm not sure if I have a way to get out of right now. So it's tough when you're trying to factor that in of losing value, but also like being priced out of a guy in a couple weeks, right? So
see, I think that, like, in general, if we talk about overall strategy, if you need to chase right now, chasing price changes is the same as point chasing, because people who,
but
like,
I don't mean like trying to chase price changes to up your value. I mean, like, I think most people are probably up against the budget cap. So it's like, are you getting priced out of players that you
if
know
you're getting
going to
priced
want?
out of players, that happens every season. It's a very normal part of the game. Like, the fact of the matter is you can't have everybody. And so I think that the way that I view prices, I largely say that prices are relevant. And if I miss a guy because the price changes, and like, whatever, I'll just move on to my next move, because you got to do it all within the context of your own team, right? Like, I can't be forcing players in because I'm afraid of them rising for a -8 every week, or I'll just never gain rank. So
Right.
like last week I said, I'm not gonna force Cunha in because I just can't do it without taking a big hit, and I took Dallo instead, got rid of Anderson, who was someone I needed to in the long term address. And Dallo didn't work, but at least I have a new 4.5 mil defender. Like,
Sure.
I think that's my larger point. When there's a template, if you're so concerned about the price rises, you're also just point chasing, in the sense that the price is rising because they just had a big haul. Like, that's why everyone's going after Sade all of a sudden. But I don't think they make Sade like a great pick necessarily. So I don't know. It's a difference in like strategy, but I don't think prices matter as much. And when the prices are swinging, they can swing the other direction, right? So it's more about staying out of the mud right now and like looking in like 3 weeks, like, should I, instead of forcing Acuna in for a hit, go for a Chalaba early? That's what I did with Rodgers. Like, I'm hoping that proves to be the right case.
So I think that's, a great example of that right now. Also, a player who's going to rise tonight is somebody like a Gabriel, which I don't think any of us would say is a bad pick or is a point chasing pick, but does the same logic hold true for somebody like that?
I mean, the logic holds true only in the context of your own team, which is like such a cliche, but it's like, obviously you want Gabriel, but if you want Gabriel and you have to take a -8 to get him this week, is like, how many points do you have to score for that to be worth it? Like, Gabriel would have to go and get like 2 headers next week, and that just doesn't seem worth it. And if you have questions on Phil Foden, just get rid of him in a week when you have a transfer. Like, I think the point is that in a high template meta with low variability, often the best thing to do is just nothing.
That's so counterintuitive to everything that I do.
I was going to say also with Gabriel, like, I think that's a very specific one, but also like, he's the highest scoring defender and he hasn't played in 7 weeks. So like, how long, I'm not saying you need to go take a -8 to get him in necessarily, but like, I think that is a blanket statement is not true. What you're saying.
I'm just saying from it, like, yes, like, it doesn't mean ignore the good picks and never go after them, but it means don't force your team into a shape that it's not meant to be in, nor can it easily get in because you want to avoid price rises or something like that. Like, I just flat out couldn't afford Cunha, and I said, you know what, I'm not willing to sacrifice the guys that I have to sacrifice to get him, and that was the right decision. It doesn't mean I don't eventually maybe want him, or like a Gabriel I couldn't get last week without taking a big hit. And so I said, I'm just going to wait 2 weeks. He's going to continue to be a good asset, and I'm going to have to shift my team in a large way, so I'll do it then versus just taking hits to get him now. Like, it's kind of the larger point. Like, if you want, like, I always say don't be afraid of taking hits, but that also means don't get comfortable, like, just treating your team like as if you're going to wildcard every week on a hit, right? It's kind of like because you got to make those points up, and you're not going to make the points up if you're constantly taking hits.
Yep. No, I hear you. I think that's fair. I think that's a logic, but I also I'm partial to the aggressive style of play, so I'm going to continue, but I'm not going to take a -8. So I guess there is a happy medium that I think we both agree on.
For sure. But I think like the Cunha one's a good example of, you say that was the right decision, but like, had he scored 2 goals, right? Then it's no longer the right decision. And
I don't agree.
And you should have taken the hit.
No, I don't agree, because the only way I could get
objectively, if he scores 2 goals, that outscores a hit, which is 4 points. So objectively, that's the right choice.
This is a sensitive subject for Luke because he didn't score. So just give him some grace in his anger here.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. The point is not about specific players. The point is, for my team, I could not get him in without taking a -8. So even if he scored 2
Right.
goals, there was
Right.
no world in which I personally benefited, and that's why it was the right decision.
No, I think these are
Right.
good like thought processes. I think we should apply them to guys that we're looking at in our teams because I think we all want to look at Gabrielle in the near future here. Obviously, there's some midfield shifts that we've touched on here. So, what are we looking at, and what are the price implications or barriers that we're facing right now?
Well, do you guys want to touch really briefly on Chelsea? Obviously, big news out of there is we've got no Maresca, and I'm just curious what we've mentioned. Talk about the template shifting. We've mentioned that Chelsea, whether a player like Chalobah is just like somebody you should have. He's the 4th highest scoring defender, or tied for second, I suppose. And obviously, they're going into a nice run of fixtures relatively soon. But either this makes you more encouraged about Chelsea picks, or it makes you more discouraged. I'm curious where your guys' headspace is on potentially a new manager, or not potentially a new manager coming in.
I mean, I'm sorry, we were hesitating there, Sharp. I'm
No,
discouraged, but that's because I don't know enough about the guy who's going to come in yet. Like, it's rumored to be, God, what is his name? I just looked it up. Someone, I think it's from Strasbourg, who is a team that they own, right? So it's kind of like a multi-club model, and I think his name is Liam Rossinier. I don't know him. I don't know how he plays. Therefore, I can't make enough decision. I'm
Sure.
inherently a little bit pessimistic about it. I think because Maresca played quote unquote pragmatic, boring football, soccer. So like, if we're all looking at moving in Chelsea defenders,
Defensively, yeah.
it's because he plays a really defensive, pragmatic style that has like a high priority on set pieces, which is why the Chelsea assets are up there. So if Ross Senior plays the same way and he's the guy who comes in, then yeah, I'm happy to move on them. But it does give me trepidation about moving for them right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Sharp, any thoughts?
I think they're a really good team. I think they're going to continue to be really talented, and I don't think a manager is going to come in mid-season and say, "Hey, you're sitting top 3 in the Prem. I'm going to fuck it up." So I do think there's going to be. I'm less scared or concerned. Like I think the guys that have been good are going to continue to be good. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm maybe naive, but I'm just not going to care that much about it until he shows that I need to care if they suck ass.
And we do have a couple weeks to see how this new manager is performing before the fixtures really turn. So that gives us some leeway there. Yeah, sorry to derail us, but we can definitely hop into specific players. Mac, I know you had a couple things you wanted to share from that perspective. I think one that it seems like we're all kind of talking about is Foden. You know, has his hot streak ended, and is he somebody to get out? Because that's obviously a cash cow where you could, to your point, Mac, not have to worry about price changes too much if you're able to just get the money out there and add that to somewhere else. Perfect. Foden versus Rodgers is a good example of his fixtures. Obviously gets past the Arsenal fixture now and has some opportunity to produce.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the main debate is I think a lot of people are looking at Rodgers. Obviously, you said his price has risen a couple times, right? A lot of people are concerned about Foden because he's pretty expensive and hasn't returned in the last couple. And so I just wanted to pull together a couple graphs to like look at some of this and be like, should we really be going hard for Rodgers at the expense of like a Phil Foden, for instance? Honestly, I think if you're looking at doing a 1-for-1 from Phil Foden to Morgan Rodgers, the data seems to say no. Like, I don't think it's a secret that Aston Villa have been overperforming pretty consistently. And even though, City just drew Sunderland last weekend, he was still pretty involved in the game. And I feel like City's very much a team where they all rise together or drown together. Like, they either all do well or they don't do well. So the data seems to say no. I think the other implication, though, is if you're considering downgrading Phil Foden to like a Cherky to get a Morgan Rodgers instead and free up some cash that way, but still keep it a City defender, then the conversation becomes a little more interesting.
Yeah.
Because the second graph is a Ryan Cherky to Phil Foden graph, and this is per 90. So Cherky was out for a little while with injuries, and so this tries to take account for that. And honestly, their numbers are fairly similar. And the only thing I think that Foden is better on is he has more turnovers, which isn't really a huge stat in a midfield position. And then Cherky gets progressive carry distance, so he's running with the ball more. But they're fairly similar.
Yeah, I think the main appeal from an FPL perspective for Foden over Cherki is just the certainty of minutes. That's like the only reason why you might not make that move. But otherwise, I agree with you. I think that's a solid pick. And then on the Rodgers point, everything you said, I agree with. Of like City is just a better attack than Villa, and like how much can we rely on this? We've seen Morgan Rodgers. He's an unbelievable player and is able to score in positions he probably shouldn't, and so that definitely should be accounted for. But also, it's like, is this a repeatable action? Is he able to consistently do this? Whereas City, like, you don't have as many question marks in their attack, despite drawing 0-0 to Sunderland. But yeah,
I think what the data doesn't show is looking forward. So Rodgers, if you look at their last, I'm going to say, I'll go back through their last 6. He returned, 2 of those being a 15-point game, and 3. He returned in 3 of them. The other 3 were Arsenal, Chelsea, and Arsenal, and he did not return. Understandable against those teams. And then I look forward, and this week he has Forest. Next is Palace, and I know Palace has been good, but I think we've all talked about and seen their legs kind of fallen off with the amount of games and minutes that each player has to play on that team. So Palace is no longer that scary to me. Then you get Everton. Then you get Newcastle, which, again, tough defense, but will concede a goal. So hopefully he's the guy they concede to. And I think to your point as well, or the other thing, and you did mention it as you pulled up Cherki, is that Rodgers right now is 1.1 different. I think it's 8.6 to 9.5, or at least in my team, that's how it is. So you do get that extra mil to go play around with. And when you're looking at bringing in other guys like Gabriel, it's like, okay, yes, does Phil have better stats and better underlying metrics and all that for sure, but can I help my team somewhere else to lift it up? And do I have the optimism in Rodgers over the next few weeks, which I guess I certainly do.
Yeah, so I mean, just to be clear, I have both Foden and Rodgers, and that's why I brought him in. But I've also, on the flip side, been considering downgrading Foden to Cherki to free up money elsewhere. Similar reasoning to the fact that I've been debating doing Saka to Rice to free up money. Just then Rice got injured, so it's a different conversation now. But I mean, I think that if you were just going to straight swap Foden for Rodgers, I probably wouldn't do it. That's what the data seems to be telling me. I think, as Luke said, City is just a better attack. I think that, however, it doesn't seem like there's really a problem doing Foden to Cherki and then getting Rodgers if you can afford that, because Cherki and Foden are so similar, and it just feels like Phil Foden is really expensive. Like, do you guys have the same vibe? If Phil Foden is involved, do we still want to keep him? Is, I guess, my question. Or is it time to say thank you for the points and move on?
Honestly, I think that's a good question. And not one that I feel like I've answered yet. So I'm appreciating your guys' perspective on it.
If I had unlimited funds, like, for sure would want Foden, but I'm going down. I mean, I can tell you right now my answer to what I've done, and you guys will see it in my bus team, is Foden is gone. And it's just his money. Like, I need money elsewhere. So Foden's gone. Yep. Rodgers is in. Cherki's coming in next week for Rice, unless Rice gets healed in the next week.
Can we move it forward? Because I think there's certainly an argument to be made of maybe Cherki's just straight better than Foden, and that could be possible. But I think the main reason why, to your point, Mac, why we're talking about it is to free up funds. But if you want to bring up, let me just add in this Ekitike stuff. Obviously, we're comparing Ekitike with a player like Jared Bowen, but insert whoever. It could be even DCL. That's somebody who, I mean, we're probably going to get rid of, right? Is that somebody that you guys are thinking of as like a long-term, we're getting rid of him? Obviously, so the next few, Fulham this week, then Arsenal, then a nice fixture in Burnley, and another relatively nice fixture in Bournemouth, and then Newcastle and City and Sunderland, which are a little bit tougher. So I don't know. It feels like for an 8.8 striker, that if I'm looking at Foden and Ekitike and saying who would I rather say thanks for the points and run, I'd probably rather cash out on Ekitike. Although the difference is you'd maybe want to do that next week. So yeah, curious where, because like from the money perspective, I'm more happy to keep the money in Foden, because I think I always kind of thought Ekitike was a little bit of a shorter term play. But do you guys feel the same way, or do you feel differently?
I think it's so difficult, because in a perfect world, or just a world where Liverpool looks like a real football team, like, Ekitike is so easy. He's on Liverpool. He is the only forward that's healthy. He's the only forward that we're really going to play moving forward. Right. Like, how can you not have him? And then you watch the game this week and you're like, that's how I can't have him, because holy shit, it was gross. And It's hard. I think it's so valid to get rid of Ekatike and bring Bowen in, or just anyone else that has a run of good fixtures that you want to swap in and out. So
I mean,
I'm
you
here
could
for
even
it.
go
I'm
all the
just
way
gonna
down.
You could go to DCL 100%. Yeah, I
you
agree
could go
with
even
that.
further though. Like you could, I don't think this isn't necessarily what I would do, but you could go to like a GUI and then, or GUI or whatever, and then have as much money as you want to go play around with. Like,
Yeah, as long as you have a second striker to play next to Hollins, for sure.
Yeah, I
think
mean,
that's totally
honestly,
fair.
for me, I think that the ideal forward lineup, if I could just pick who I wanted right now, would be to get rid of Ekatike only because he's a price hog, which we talked about a couple weeks ago when we were bringing him in. Get Bowen and then bring in DCL, and just have 3 playable forwards because those seems to be the guys right now with relatively good fixtures, and DCL's performing, and he's like obviously the third choice. Alternatively, you could have a Thiago, but I think generally my sentiment on these forwards is they're all still just kind of meh. Like, and overall on Ekatike, if I had to choose between Ekatike and Phil Foden, I think I'd rather get the funds out of Ekatike because it feels like Foden is, as one of you said earlier, just on a more competent attack. No, that's it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think like it's easy to look at this week being like, all right, it's time to get rid of Phil because they're playing Chelsea. But if you get through this week, and also this is a Chelsea who just lost their manager, take your pick on how that's going to affect them because I couldn't fucking tell you. But then they've got Brighton, United, Wolves, Tottenham. Like that in and of itself is a pretty solid run. And then, I mean, the hard fixture out of that is Liverpool, which someone on here would probably say is bullshit.
We'll give them goals. There's no question.
Right. So point being, like, he's definitely a part of it. I think the more worrying thing with Foden is just that, like what you talked about before we brought him in, Mac, where you're like, this whole season he hasn't done shit. Like this whole season he's been blanking very consistently, and it has been putting up decent underlying numbers through some of that time, and still just not scoring, not assisting. Right? It's been the Holland show at City, so maybe it's just time that they're going back to their regular scheduled programming. And I think the other problem with the Ekatike move in general is just that the three of us, at least, I don't know if this is true of the community, are starved of banking transfers. So if you take down Ekatike and you want to go apply those funds elsewhere, it's 2 transfers at least.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Versus a 1-for-1 for Foden to Cherokee or Foden to Rodgers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I get to back to the conversation we were having earlier. Is just like, all these moves have to happen within the context of your own team, and that's like the biggest piece of FPL advice I can ever give to anybody. Is it's like, if you have to take 2 transfers, well, it's more like it's less play it your way and more like if you have to take 2 transfers or 3 transfers to afford somebody, there's very few scenarios where that ever pays off.
Sure.
Right. Like a -4 is okay, but like a -8 is rarely the answer. And it just depends on how many moves you can get for these guys.
It's also like, I think what's plagued just every team in general, it seems like right now, is we're in the Christmas period. And the reason that people who were more pragmatic going into those AFCON 5 free transfers was they were preparing for this time period of having a lot of players who get injured or get, dropped from lineups or what have you. It's just a lot of fixtures in a quick time period. And so that has to factor into your thinking as well, right? You can plan it out 4 weeks in advance and say, I'm going to burn 4 transfers over the next 4. And then, Declan Rice gets injured out of the blue and you got to make a change there. So yeah, definitely tough times in that sense. Okay. So I guess we can feed this into kind of our transfers, our bus teams and whatever. Let's just look at like some team data and maybe some individual data to see where we want to go. It seems like last week was a good week to have a bad week in the sense of all the threats, it felt like, failed, at least from a personal perspective. Most of the threats failed. And this week it kind of looks similarly, like there aren't any like wow fixtures. Last week it was obviously on paper the United versus Wolves. This week it seems like a lot of just like solid matchups and some bad teams playing bad teams. So it lends itself to maybe rolling if you can, trying to recoup for a later week. Obviously that's not what I'm doing. It sounds like that's not what Sharp's doing either, but Mac, maybe you're the one who's in a position to actually do that.
I'm not sure. I look at like the matchups in this week. The problem for me specifically, and I don't know if you guys are in the same boat, is just that a lot of these teams that everybody wants play the same people. Like Newcastle is playing somebody. obviously. Who are they playing?
Crystal Palace.
Yeah, Newcastle's playing Crystal Palace, and so most of us probably have Crystal Palace assets in or Newcastle assets, and then like Arsenal's playing Bournemouth, and so there's one for the Semenyo owners, or if like you're going for a Gabriel and you have Semenyo, like it's tricky. So I just like, yes, there are some good fixtures right now on paper, but I don't know how moved or how compelled I feel to move strongly because this just doesn't look like a high scoring week in general. I feel like this might be like another 40 pointer for a lot of folks.
The only counter I have to that is that with Arsenal and their set piece dominance and obviously having their best asset back in that sense, Bournemouth are like one of the worst set piece teams in the Prem. If not, I think they are the worst. So, could be a reason to either go for someone like a Saka, a Gabriel, or even a Rice if he's back and on corners. That's a bigger question mark, I think. But let's see how that reflects. I haven't looked at this yet, but yeah, I mean, even this is an interesting week, like in the sense of, again, take these with a grain of salt because they're not always right. But like Richarlison, Welbeck, Watkins, DCL, Gyak, like those are not highly owned players. Even Voltamade, who's getting 60 minutes on the jump.
Look at that number 16, though, my boy.
Not anymore, right? Did you get rid of him?
No, he's still on the
He's
squad.
still there?
I, however, play him when he sits and don't play him when he scores. So,
This could be a week. It is interesting, like to see whether or not he's going to start Barrios, who we're talking about. I would think that it was just a midweek rest that they were trying to give him.
I think so.
Or like
right?
ahead of a midweek fixture.
It's unfortunate that he got it against Burnley because that would have been the one that you would think that you would, for a team like Everton, that's kind of, middle of the road. There's a 3 points hopefully for Burnley, so you would think you would want to play your best players just to get that. But what the hell do I know?
That says to me more that they don't have confidence in who their best players are. Like I think if they're rotating between Beto and Barry, Beto was starting most of the beginning of the season, right?
Yeah,
if I recall. So I think they're still very much feeling it out. I'm not an Everton fan, but I'd be curious to know if they're looking at signing any forward options this winter.
Should.
And this is interesting too, of kind of some of the players that we were talking about there. Like you see Rodgers and Foden right next to each other on this. They have the same projected goals amount. You obviously don't see, like you see Ekatike pretty high up there, so it doesn't seem like maybe the best week to move him on. It's just interesting. I don't know if any of the stuff we were just talking about is stuff that you take care of this week. You certainly could, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's priority. And then you have players like I'm seeing Bowen at 34, who's playing Wolves. You would hope that would be higher, but I think that's probably just a reflection of how shit West Ham are. I wonder if they're going to be active in the transfer window over the next couple of weeks.
I think they just signed somebody like literally today, but I'm not sure. I think it was a full Krug replacement, but I'm not sure he's that great. The West Ham fans didn't seem enthused about it, so more research to come on that. I think overall, when I look at this graph, it says to me that it's going to be a low scoring week, and
which means that it's going to be goals galore.
Well, for me, it means that you shouldn't move, and there's going to be some high variability because like one guy might get a goal, and you may or may not have him, and you're going to hate yourself for that.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, like I don't know if Rodgers has the better fixture this week than Foden, but like let's say you made that transfer, it's one I'm considering, so I'm not trying to be high and mighty about it, but like you could easily see Foden returning and Rodgers not, and that wouldn't be shocking. Which I think to the point of like taking hits, Mac, is where it's like if you're taking a hit on a player, it needs to be like you're really convinced they either have just something categorically better than the other, or one of them is injured and they're not going to play, or something along those lines.
So on this list, if you had to take a hit for one player, who would it be? Like if you were forced to take a hit and you said, I have high degrees of confidence in this player, who is it this week?
Yeah, shut up. Who would be a good one this week? And I mean, this is like not long-term necessarily, but for this week, it would be Saka. Honestly, I think that's an interesting, like he's probably even more of a differential now. I would assume a lot of people divested out of him. I don't think Cunha versus Leeds, like that game last week, obviously didn't put a lot of confidence in there, and Leeds is at least a little bit better defensively than Wolves. So I don't feel great there. Not a whole lot is the answer. Like, I don't think there would be any player that I would probably take a hit for.
I mean, I was on a similar train. I think that maybe the one guy I'd be taking a hit for is potentially Gabriel, just for all the reasons you discussed with Bournemouth's lack of set piece defensibility. Yeah. But, I think if that's the conclusion you come to, then it points out it screams more strongly for a roll week, and that's the context I try to frame. Should I take a hit or not in, or should I just save the transfer? Because if we think that the meta is shifting, if we think that there are not a lot of strong fixtures this week, is it better to just capitalize
of the
next
move.
week? Yeah,
Oh, sure.
have more players. That's kind of my view on rolling versus hitting, and this just doesn't seem like a strong week.
Yeah. Heard.
Well, agreed 100%. And I think those were all forwards and mids, which is fair. Like, I think we're going back to the beginning / first half of the season where defenders are going to be the ones that you're getting points from. So I think we're going to need to start paying attention over the next few game weeks here, where we're starting to get more into the Chelsea. Okay, there's like 6 people from Chelsea that could return, but their defenders are probably going to return, or not return, but give you good numbers to it. So I think we're switching back because it's the same way with Sunderland. I want Sunderland defenders again as my cheap options because they have a good run. So I think that's going to be even more the focus, and maybe where you can differentiate your points versus trying to target the 1 goal scorer in a week.
Yeah, and I just don't think there's ever a recipe for success by trying to chase that 1 goal score. Like if it's a low upside week, it's about what's coming next, not what's happening now.
Right, 100%. That's a good call, Sharp, on that Sunderland run. Tottenham, Brentford, Palace, West Ham, Burnley, and then they go into Arsenal, Liverpool. But
yeah, I agree. That's why I had El Derte in the wildcard draft that we put up.
Well, and I think when we're talking, like earlier we were talking about Ekitike, and this is a point that you made long ago, Mac, is unfortunately a player like that, the reason we're talking about getting rid of him is not that he's not an available striker on a great team, which we all agree he is. It's that he's priced like a Prem winning striker. And he's not that. He's not even in theory on pens. So that's a difficulty. But Sunderland is the opposite of that, where they're performing at such a high level, especially defensively, where that's like money in the bank, right? Really cheap players like an Alderete, like a
Mukiele.
Mukiele. And then there's the 4.5 Ballard. Like he's a fire player as well. So I think there's a lot of options. You can go Royf's the highest scoring keeper. But this is again where, like, personally, I start to be like, the wild card itch has hit the first week it's available, but like in 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, I could put in a Royce, put in somebody like that and take that money out of forwards and what have you, or out of defense, I should say, and then put it into the mids and put it into players. Like I could do like potentially a Saka and a Palmer or something like that. Or we'll see, who knows. At that point you might have Bruno, you might have Bumo. There's a lot of options that could be interesting. So regardless, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, we do that. And then it all blows up in our face. But maybe we look at what we're doing this week.
Yeah,
I can plans for game week 20.
Actually, I don't have mine up, so one of you guys go first.
Mac, I don't think's made one yet, so I'm happy to throw mine out there.
Did have someone in the chat, by the way. So hello.
Shout out. Thanks for listening.
Fellow content creator, all about FPL. So nice to talk to you.
Nice. Welcome in. Glad you're listening. But this is my bust team now. So I did make my 1 free transfer this week. It was, we've been talking a lot about it, but Foden to Rodgers is where I went. The real reason for it, I still like Foden, but what this does is hopefully sets me up for bringing Gabriel over the next week or 2 weeks. I want to still see what Rice looks like or how long he's going to be out if Arteta ever tells us anything of use. So I want to hold on to him for a second, but he would go down to Turkey next week if we don't hear anything helpful or positive about him. And then that would allow me to cover off on that. And it just takes Foden out for Chelsea, but I still have Haaland. So like, hopefully it goes through Haaland if they score. I am playing 5 at the back this week. Like I mentioned, I do think the defense is going to start to become a stronger aspect, and I'm going to probably be doing this maybe a little more frequently, or at least have 5 competent guys back there that I feel like I could start. Dallo is going to be the guy. I think it's next week they have Burnley, so the week after that their fixtures kind of go back to being and obviously we've talked about United not being a great defensive team. So in the future he's going to be a guy I'm looking to get a Sunderland guy in for, or if I can even take him all the way up to Gabriel and just have quite a lot in the back line there. That is another thing I've been kicking around. So tying it all together, we talked this week about it not looking like a ton of attacking threat or possibly being another low scoring week. I agree. So I'm not making like giant moves, but I am trying to set myself up for the next couple of weeks here with freeing up some cash because I think I'm at 1.2 in the bank with that move.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a good time to dump some cash because I think it's going to change soon, and just being on top of that is good.
Is your plan with Ekatike to hold him through the Arsenal fixture and just like bench him or even play him for that?
I don't know, man. I don't know what I want to do with him. He along with the team just pisses me off. So right now I'm gonna hold him. Yeah, I think Bowen is more than a worthwhile, but I don't want to rely on a guy that his entire team. Although I guess I'm doing that right now. His entire team sucks ass and like can't really get the ball to him. So that's why I don't like him. But West Ham obviously have fantastic fixtures. So that's a hard one. I think if you have a good gut instinct to go one way or the other, totally fair. But yeah, my plan right now is to just hold on to Ekatike.
Well, and yeah, next week, I mean, I would assume the thought process there is like what you said about going Rice to Turkey potentially would be to maybe be able to bench Ekatike, but I'm not sure what all your defenders are looking like. Anyway, that'll be interesting. You could argue to just play him. I mean, to your point, he is kind of the main man at the moment.
He's
it's
the only
fine.
forward on that team he's going to play. And
Right.
maybe Slot will play fun ball instead of boring. We'll see.
Yeah. All right, I can jump in next. Talking about taking hits for Gabriel, that is exactly what I did. I did Chris Richards to Gabriel because obviously he misses out yet again, and it seems like he's still potentially a doubt. We also talked about Palace just potentially being on a rough run for a while. So brought him in, and then the other transfer. God, what else did I do? Oh, it's to afford that I had to bring Wilson down to Garner. So Garner's fine. Like I've watched a lot of Everton this year, weirdly enough, and even when all their players are around, Garner is somebody who's really involved. I still definitely like KDH better, but I think he's a fine player for his price, and I just needed to downgrade somewhere. I'm not like so upset about losing Harry Wilson. Obviously, the fixtures pass, but I do also think Harry Wilson's a quality. Like he's of the Fulham attackers is definitely the best one. So anyway, that was my thought process was. I think unlike you guys, an additional reason of urgency to getting Gabriel is because I sold Timber last week. I don't have any Arsenal, or I have Raya, but I didn't have the double Arsenal defense. So it felt like, from that perspective, a worthwhile transfer. But
I agree. I think that's like, if you don't have a Arsenal defender, then he is the priority. It's just I have one.
I think the weird part here, or like why I'm still potentially thinking about something else. Obviously, that would be a -8, and there's a lot of reason to not do that. Is that Rice isn't projected to start. So as of now, or who knows? I mean, maybe he'll start. Who knows? I can't trust Arteta, but maybe Garner comes in and subs. That could be fine. So that's right now the plan. And then to the point of the Foden to Rodgers, like Rodgers is definitely somebody who I had intended a couple weeks ago to bring in this week. And then other fires happened. So I can't directly do Rice to Rodgers, unfortunately. It would have to be, either a double move or Foden to Rodgers or something, and then it feels too complicated and it feels like I'm doing too much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You're in a tough spot with the amount of injuries that, I mean, you had all 3 different shades of red, I think, on your bench when you showed your points from last week. So
fire going on my bench. Yeah.
It is tough, but I think the Harry Wilson down is a great call. I think Garner is obviously the leading contender right there. I'm going to give the guy I called out on Brentford just because Brentford has a great run as well. He's a 4.9 mid, so it's an extra 0.1. And
what was his name again?
Janelt, however you say it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of liked him just because of the DEFCONs. Like he went, I think it was 20, 16, 13 over the past 3 of the 4 of the last game weeks. And so that seems like someone that's going to consistently do it.
What is my question on him is, do we know on Brentford what caused him to start playing? Because he hasn't played a full 90 until 17. So is there an injury that has freed up room for him, or like why?
It might just be Dango being gone for AFCON.
Yeah, I need to make sure that it's a good shout because he's gotten great returns in the 3 games he's played, but I just need to understand like why is he playing? And that's what I don't get with him right now.
It's worth noting Garner is also a pretty solid DEFCONer. He gets 11.1 per game, so he's hit it for the last few weeks.
Yeah. Totally fair. I don't think you can go wrong. I think it's just a good call that we hadn't talked about those lower
100%. So yeah, I don't know. Is there any additional moves you guys would make here? Obviously, like I'm hanging in the balance with the Rice stuff. If Rice plays, then I'm fine. I'm not worried about it. But if he doesn't, I think is when it gets to like, should I just get rid of that? I'm also losing value to the price change point earlier, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel bad about Garner coming in. That's why you go to a guy that you can play at that lower price. So, like, obviously he's going to get you 2 to 6 points probably, somewhere in that range, and you can't expect a lot more, but that's all right. Honestly, if I were you, though, I'd be like I think your forward line is great. You could bring Ekatike down, not right now, but in the near future. And I just hate Cunha, dude. I hate him so much. So
I feel you. I felt like this, like now that Wolves has passed, I'm already like fuck this. This also lends itself to like just quickly on the wild card conversation. This isn't really the structure of team that I want long term. Like it's really not. And so I get down, I don't know, maybe sometime between 22 and 24, somewhere in that range, and I still have stuff like this. It may behoove me. Like a great example of that is a player like Chow that I still have that I'm like, God, I've been trying to get rid of him for ages, but just haven't been able to. So anyway.
So I don't think you need to take a hit this week or a further hit this week. I would say I think you have a very playable team this week and you should feel good about it. But yeah, I can see how you're going to take a hit over the next 3 weeks consistently.
Well, so that's why I'm like next week, right? Ekatike and Arsenal. So I'll probably just bench him or play him. But it's like I would love to get rid of him, but again, that's a double move. And so I could just do, I suppose, Ekatike straight to DCL and hope he stays on his run. But it's anyway, yeah, we're in rough spots.
I mean, if you're not happy with the team structure, I think that incentivizes next week potentially rolling and then being able to make those moves for a -4 in 2 weeks or something.
For sure. For sure.
If you want to do a big change, I think you just have to plan out how you're going to make those large scale sweeping changes.
Yeah, I think next week I can get away with it. I can bench Ekatike and do 4 at the back. But if I have an injury again or something, or if let's say, I guess I could play Rice too if he's back. We'll see what happens. Anyway, take us home, Mac.
Yeah. All right. I don't have a lot going on this week. I'm actually going to share my screen. So this is my bus team. Obviously, no transfers made. If I just go to the live version, I just wanted to talk through a couple things that I just wrote it. No, it was my fault. I wanted to talk about a couple things that I've been considering over the next couple weeks. So I don't have any free transfers. Last week, I did Anderson out to Dallo just because I thought the fixtures were getting horrible. And it seems like I should have gone with the Sunderland guy instead. But whatever, at least I have a guy who can play in a couple of these games. And I'm fine with that. Where I've had a lot of the similar debates, should I bring in a Cherokee? Should I get rid of Bruno G? How much do we like Rodgers? How much do we like Ekatike? The problem is for me is that there's really, like you guys have been saying, no great move that I can do in one. So if I bring in Bowen this week, I could do that against Wolves, which is probably one of my better moves. But, at the same time, it's is Foden to Cherokee for a 1-to-1 my move? Or Foden to somebody for a hit the move? I can't afford Gabriel right now, so either way I need to take out 2 moves. And so I think I have 2 options. My first is probably just rolling this week to try to facilitate a bigger move next week, as in Ekatike out, Bowen in, or dropping out. I want to maybe bring in Pickford and then get rid of a Guehi to bring in potentially a Gabriel and or get rid of Raya for a Pickford, get rid of a Crystal Palace defender for a Gabriel. But all of those moves require not only freeing up a mil in the midfield or in the forward line, and then 2 moves here. So that's a -8 this week, or I could just do the other option, which is Dewsbury Hall out because I think he's going to be out for a while. Get Garner and get some bench coverage, but then it leaves me in the same problem of still needing to take a -8 next week to execute all those moves. So the 0.4 rolling is my comfort level with just keeping an injured Dewsbury Hall on the bench. The problem is I think Garner's going to rise today and I won't be able to afford him anymore. Or it's, just do this move, get another playable bench player and just be happy with my team, but extend the horizon for when I'm going to be able to bring in a Gabriel, when I'm going to be able to get out of an Ekatike, etc.
I feel like of those moves, the one I like the least is just the KDH to Garner. It feels like, one, we don't know when KDH could be back. It could be sooner rather than later. Who knows? And you don't really need him this week. I think my bigger question that might help you figure this out is what you want to do with Ekatike long term. Because if your plan is for sure to sell him next week to Bowen, for example, then you could argue keeping Ekatike this week and just rolling and keeping the flexibility. But if you were like, hey, I'm pretty set on going Bowen from Ekatike next week, then Bowen's playing Wolves, might as well hop on the train a little early. But yeah, I could easily see rolling as well.
So I think that's a great way of looking at it. He's not my issue so much as I have some concerns about Guehi with this run coming up. Villa, Sunderland, Chelsea, Forest, Brighton.
Right. And so you want to get him to Gabriel.
I want to get him to Gabrielle before Gabrielle just goes astronomical. I also think that I would like to get to a Gabrielle Timber lineup.
Sure.
And I think that the Everton run is so good that I'm really incentivized to get like a Pickford right now. And I've had Raya since game week 6, so this goes for like everything I stand for, but I just think that there's actually an alternative that I could just play every week. So in that regard, like I do want to get rid of Ekatike. He might be my cash cow to free up a bunch of moves down the line. But I just kind of want him for Burnley.
Yeah, no, and I think this is an easy roll then, TBH. Like he's got a good fixture this week. You can probably cover him off, maybe bench him next week.
I don't know. You've put that evil on me because now I'm like, do I just take out bring in Bowen and have like 1.3 for next week to bring in Gabrielle straight swap?
But you can't because you already have triple
Arsenal players. Yeah.
So that's the problem. Like if you're really set on getting Gabrielle next week, I think rolling like the difference between Ekatike and Bowen, it feels like the same conversation we were just having with Foden and Rodgers, where it's like either one of them could score this weekend and you wouldn't really be surprised. Obviously, Bowen has the better fixture, but he also plays for West Ham. So I think that probably balances out. So yeah, I think you should roll because then it affords you the opportunity to get Gabrielle next week.
See, that's what I was thinking. I think that rolling makes the most sense for me. I was mostly curious about your guys' appetite for the Dewsbury Hall to Garner shout, because if I don't do that, I still kind of have 2 dead spots on the bench.
Sure.
And the fixtures just aren't great this week. Like, I don't know if it makes more sense to play a Foden over a Chow or play a Chow over like, gosh, I mean, it's probably the debate, like Guehi, Bruno G, Chow.
Oh yeah, I do see the dilemma. I didn't realize we were playing 4 at the back.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, sort of forced to play 4 at the back either way because I just don't have a 5th midfielder. Potentially 5 at the back, but probably 4 at the back.
God, I would say play Chow, but boy, just bench that guy in perpetuity. Kick him.
Well, it's so tricky because, going forward, Crystal Palace have looked so garbage. But then we didn't touch on this. They just signed Brendan Johnson from Spurs, and I think he's going to go crazy there because he's an inside forward, pure goal scorer, and that's what they're looking for. And so I don't know if he plays next week, but I could see him being a huge boon for Crystal Palace. And if he plays next week, I could actually see him scoring. I'm like, shit, I don't know whether I want to play Chow or not.
Again, I think I know you guys have talked about Guehi as a potentially priority out player, and I just think his goal threat is even more reason to keep him and start him and play him. Like, yes, Palace look worse defensively, and that's a knock to him, but yeah, I would be happy playing him even in a relatively bad fixture.
My problem with that is just who are the guys I'm sacrificing to keep, and it's a Chelsea defender in 21 or 22 or a Gabriel now, and in both scenarios, I think I prioritize the other 2 versus Guehi.
Sure.
That's just where my head's at with it.
I mean, next week, if you were like, hey, should I do Guehi to Gabrielle? I'd be like, absolutely. So if that's what you're doing, then for sure.
So, it's a little tricky. I just think because I have all these debates, the smarter thing to do is just roll and not move and then have more freedom next week because we might have totally different information or Gabrielle could get injured again or something like that. So
yeah, when in doubt, hit the roll. I think that's
I'm gonna say one thing just to because I like to make you spin. I think it's a little fun. It gets me going when you guys are concerned. I think if you went Ekatike to Bowen, you had the exact fun to go Guehi to Gabrielle. So that's not going to be a way to do it next week because prices are going to change.
But also he'd have 4 Arsenal players, so he couldn't do that anyway.
Oh fuck, you're right.
So I apologize. I didn't just see this until now, but we did have a question in the chat, and that was, is Foden, is Gabriel in at any costs right now? That's the big question, I think, this week. Like, Luke, you seem to think, yes, you brought him in, but that's also because you didn't have an Arsenal defender. So
it's tough because it's like I did it. Obviously, yes, I have that context, but I also think he is so unequivocally the best player. Outside of Holland, he's shown so dramatically that he's the best player. So last week, the reason I didn't go there is I was like, I think I can wait a couple weeks, and then he comes.
Well, it was just a minutes thing. We didn't know.
Right. But I was even thinking a little bit longer term. I was like, oh, I could probably wait a few weeks until the fixtures really turn. I'll just deal with a little Gabrielle. It's not a big issue, and then he scores 15 off the bat. So it's I don't think you have to do anything in FPL. I don't think that Gabrielle is absolutely rip up your team for him, but I do think. In your case, Mac, right? You already have triple Arsenal. You're going to have to make multiple moves to make it happen. It feels extra. But if you can get there in a move, even if it's for a hit, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's my personal perspective. I think it makes sense.
What I will also say is, and I don't know if I'm saying anything, but the goal he got this weekend was so dog shit. It was, dude, like
elbows the keeper in the face.
Went up, hits it up between his hands, hits Gabri's like thigh and bounces in. It was like the most accidental goal ever.
For sure.
And I'm so bummed it happened, not because I didn't have him, but because then his price is going to shoot up. And I'm like, no, I needed this to be calm for like one more week until I had the moves to afford it. It's just not.
I think to answer the original question, Gabriel, even if you do have Timber, he's worth a -4. I think you can take that hit and feel pretty confident and good about that move. If you have to make a -8 and you have Timber, then I think that's unnecessary. If you do not have Timber or you do not have another Arsenal defender, then I would almost any cost. And if you can't get there and under a -8, then you probably need to be better.
Well, we were also talking about, like, for me trying to gain rank in just like such a desperate spot, like rogue captaincy options. I think that was before we came on, but like Gabriel is a genuine captaincy shout any given week. So I don't know if this is the time to do it. Like maybe we can touch on that really briefly because we never talk about captaincy. Haaland is Mr. Permacap, but I mean Haaland playing Chelsea, like this is potentially a week you could argue to go against him. Never is there a good week to go against Haaland, but it's potentially a week you could argue it. You do have Bowen at Wolves. I guess we can bring up that goal scorer chart. You do have Bowen at Wolves. You do have Gabriel at Bournemouth. You do have Asaka at Bournemouth. I'm sure if I was in your guys' shoes, I almost certainly would just be like, the fuck are you talking about, dude? I'm going to Haaland. But I do think in that sense, Gabriel is the only defender who is a genuine captaincy shout any given week.
I think I said this a couple weeks ago which is ironic because I captained Ekitike last week, right? But where Haaland should be your captain, Gabriel was the only person that really made that a question when he was in his prime in the beginning of the season. So I think that's going to continue to be the case. I mean, he's nice. Yeah. I think right now for someone like you that's looking for those differentials on your team, you could almost go Ekitike again this week against Fulham as an option. I don't really see the reason to go Foden instead of Haaland. I truly think Haaland's been blank for too many game weeks too close together that he's about to put one of his classic brace assist games in play here. So I think he's going to be a great option this week. But I would look at Tark as a defender or anyone else that you view as like a clean sheet DEFCON guy to be that other option.
I don't, generally speaking, view defensive captainships as ever an option because goals, even on these really, really high scoring defenders, are so rare and clean sheets are so fragile. I also just don't think differential captains are the way to chase rank. And I don't know if that's just me getting punished before or if there's data to support that, but I don't think that you are going to gain significant amounts of rank because you might lose it the next week. Right. And that guy inevitably pops off. I think that rank gaining is made through smart player acquisitions outside of the captain, because if you have the guy who is 200% effective ownership, you should probably just stick the captain armband on him and then try to get other points elsewhere.
It's definitely like a gamble because it's not only does your player have to return, but the 200 EO player has to not return too. So
yeah, and if he does return even a little bit, you're like you're hemorrhaging rank at that point. No, you go.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I do think there have been times when we've been playing over the last few years where the alternative captaincy options have made sense. But right now with that Haaland is still just in this form of his life. I mean, yeah, he's had a couple of blanks recently, but he's still the same dude. It feels like you're gambling against a borderline inevitability. So it's really tough to pull that trigger.
And I think the thing is, like, historically in other seasons, there have been, as you said, totally viable options. Sure. But I don't think there's a premium. It's been long established that there's not really another premium that's worth the price or capable of getting as high of returns. And I think you play the captaincy for the ceiling, not the floor. Like, you don't play a captain for a guy who's consistently getting 4 points. You play a captainship for the guy who's possibly going to get 12 points.
Yeah, 100%.
Again, because I like to stir the pot. Haaland has blanked in 5 of his last 8 and 3 of his last 5. And he's playing Chelsea. That's all I'm saying. No, I don't think I wouldn't blame you if you went somewhere else. And I think
it is worth noting, though, the 2 that he didn't blank, he scored 2 goals and then 2 goals and an assist. So that's really what you're gambling against, is that when he does do well, he does really fucking well.
And then if you break out his points from like, sure, it's a blank in 3 games, but I guess this is a little bit misattributing the captain debate, but that's still averaging a return a game. If it's 4 goals and an assist in 5 games, even if they only came in 2 of them. So like, I hear you. Yeah.
It's also like what I said earlier, of it's not only that you're saying, okay, I believe Haaland is going to blank this week, but your player also has to return. So last week, a lot of people did Cunha, right? Because he was playing Wolves. That seemed like a guaranteed he'll do something, and then he does nothing, right? So it's like the likelihood that a given player scores a goal, especially to your point, Mac, a defender, but the likelihood that any given player returns any given week is actually incredibly low odds. If you go try to bet on FanDuel for that, you'll see why. But then with Haaland, it's like not only that player has to return, but then Haaland, who is the most likely player to score, has to not. So it's tricky. I even think there were better arguments last year against Salah, but Haaland this season just looks so alien, inhuman. It's insane.
Hey, you stay at 2 million. That's fine. I was just trying to help.
No, I honestly might captain Gabriel. I'm just saying if we're doling out advice, then that's not what I would say. I might, because I'm at 2 fucking million and I'm considering tall rooftops, but that's not a reason for anybody else to join me. All right. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we close out of here?
No,
I'm
good.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone. May 2026 bring you many green arrows, unlike me. Have a good one, y'all.